Welcome back to the Always in Pursuit podcast. I don't know why you're shaking at my head. Shaking your head at me.
You're like trying to creepier intro every
No,
time.
it's just...
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
How's it going?
Oh, boy. My name's Aaron, and we are back this week, a week after Easter. so it's good.
Sorry we didn't have a podcast last week, but I was like in and out of almost dying. So
Again.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a reoccurring theme around here.
Just had 103 fever. No bigs. Whatever.
So we're happy to be back. So Mark and Megan, hey guys, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey.
Good to be back.
How was your time with your family over the Easter time frame? For us, it's different. We don't really.
It happened.
Easter holidays.
And then I got to go home.
Okay.
So, you know.
So there's a review.
Yeah.
It's not sure
great.
how many
I got
stars.
to hang out with my niece and nephew on Monday, so that was fun.
Good.
They were in school.
Yeah. We had a sick kid.
Yeah.
So we just hung out at home.
Sounds like every family at our church.
Yeah.
We had a sick kid. That's how the conversation begins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were going to go down with Justice at a family down by Rochester, and they did, but we did not. So we just stayed home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
pretty
ate
lucky.
pizza.
That's right.
They ate pizza.
Yeah. It was still a great Easter. We just didn't do a whole lot of anything, which actually probably means it was the best Easter.
I mean, it sounds kind of ideal to me.
Yeah, it was not
Stay
bad.
home and eat pizza.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah. We had in-laws in. So we had actually just a few people that didn't have anywhere to go on Easter come over on Sunday, which was fun. And then we had family come in from basically Sunday evening, real late. It was almost Monday by the time they got in, with like their flight getting delayed, and then all the way to Friday. So I had the in-laws in town, so it was fun. And then I got an infection and had a huge fever and had a bunch of doctor's appointments and
Got that figured out.
got it figured out by Sunday.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I could be sick all week as long as I'm okay on Sunday.
I mean, that's pretty much on par for the last year for a busy week for us. It's somebody's sick, almost dying.
Yep.
Is Mark going
All
to be able
the
to preach on
things
Sunday?
I don't know, guys.
happening.
Yeah.
But it's great. Easter happened, and we had a room full of people. We had like 180 people, which is the biggest service we've had for a while. And it's even more fun, Mark. We were talking about this last week, counting the people that were away.
Mm-hmm.
That were, because we have a lot of young families visiting grandparents and family out of town. So counting another 50 people or so that weren't there. But yeah, it was fun to see some faces we haven't seen in a while. Fun to see some extended family that come generally for Easter.
Yeah.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like when I walked away, I felt really good about just how the feel of the day and just how things went, and just, you know, the music was good and
Yeah.
just felt really good. But yeah, there was like, it kind of feels like you have a family meal or a family time where like part of your family's missing, you know? Because like we do have such a young church. We have a weird kind of thing that happens. Like a lot of churches, they'll be like, yeah, their absolute maximum capacity Sunday is on Easter.
Mm-hmm.
Our maximum capacity Sunday is almost always in September.
Yeah.
Because we have a completely different church. A lot of our young families travel, and they're just like, they're going to grandma and grandpa's, or they're up north, or they're at the cabin, or they're you know, going here and there. So it's like we have a great Sunday on Easter, but it's not by far our like.
You're like, who are you? I'm so and so's sister.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Yeah.
So we grow by like random sort of
Yeah.
family connections.
Connections, yep.
But it's really September where everybody's back because they're so kids like centric.
Yep.
That like school's beginning, and then we get that 1 week in September where everybody happens to be there, and
Yep.
it's like, whoa.
And there's an extra energy. There's like a threshold number in the room that if you're over that, the room just feels super exciting and like packed full.
It's about
that's
120 adults.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Yep.
And what's crazy is that like I honestly don't. We're not measuring this because we care so much about the numbers, but it's things like that. It's like, okay, if we were to get over 200 adults, we could go to 2 services and allow for people to serve at one and go to another one, which would allow our kids ministry people to be in services.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you have 120 adults in the room, there's a different level of energy for worship.
Yeah.
That is just like
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, our metric is probably going to be when we switch to 2 services. It's probably going to not be because of that, but because of how many kids we have.
oh my
in
goodness,
kids'
Yeah.
ministry.
it's
They're
crazy.
starting to get packed. We
And-
had
man.
50 kids.
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, there are things we can do. Like, we will have the gyms available to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
We could move
Yeah.
one of the classrooms into the gym, which would be sort of annoying. But it's a great problem to have. There are definitely Sundays where a third of the entire church is under 5th grade.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There were a couple Sundays ago where we had 12 2-year-olds in a room. Which is, if you've ever been around a 2-year-old, like, it's just bananas. Our kids and people are great.
They are.
We love them.
Yes, no one is allowed to switch out of children's ministry into ministry at the home. And by the way, everybody else needs to take a shift.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. So if you're new or checking us out, we're the staff, part of the staff of Pursuit Community Church in Mounds View. And we do this podcast almost every week as a supplement to our weekend services. The message that happens on Sunday, Pastor Mark or whoever is doing the preaching oftentimes doesn't get through all their notes, or they have other thoughts or ideas that are part of that same conversation or that same topic. And so we bring those things here, have those conversations in this podcast. We also talk about a lot of other fun things. And like today, we're kind of lifting the curtain a little bit and talking about church leadership stuff and numbers and different things like that. We're also reviewing the last 2 weeks of sermons in our Vibrant Faith series that Mark gave. So I'm excited about the conversation today. So
yeah.
Mark, why don't you give us a little review?
Yeah, well, we figured we'd start with the Easter sermon since we didn't have a chance to talk about it last week. And, it was one of those sermons where I kind of had written that pretty far in advance and had a pretty good idea of where it was going and felt really confident that God was sort of calling me to preach that message, which was kind of fun. It's not often that I'll preach the same passage for Easter 2 years in a row. That's essentially what I did. I'm pretty sure I did Lazarus last year.
Yep.
And,
Wah, wah, wah.
yeah. But what's funny is I studied Lazarus and I preached that passage last year and then found some other material or listened to somebody else talk about it and had some epiphanies. Wow, that would have been an amazing point to make, or I missed that.
Yeah.
And then, kind of slotted it away for next year, and then was kind of working on that illustration of having the kid who hears for the first time, which I heard from somebody else used in a different way. And I just kind of was noodling on that, just, rolling it around in my head. And it was it all came together. The whole sermon came together in about 45 minutes, which was pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And really wanted to focus on those background characters because I just kind of got obsessed with this idea that there's a lot of people who feel with the Christian faith that if they're a humble person or they don't want to take a ton of credit, they don't want to be the center of attention, they don't want to be in front of everybody on stage, they sometimes feel maybe they get lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that it's Jesus' power that resurrects people from the dead, but it's the obedience of people, normal people, who hear what Jesus' command is and say yes, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was him saying, hey, roll that stone away, so then he could call Lazarus out. And then it was, Lazarus, you got to assume he's just hopping out of there. Just is that where the Easter bunny comes from? A grave closed kind of dude hopping out. And then they had to unwrap him. And I just thought, man, the discipleship process is just unwrapping people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My brain just goes to all the people who are in, again, kids'
Right.
Sunday school rooms,
Yeah.
or people who are in small groups leading a new believer, or people doing stuff in the background. I just thought, this is what fuels us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really true about our church. You could say there are a lot of things that fuel us as believers, right? Probably plenty of things that we didn't talk about,
Yeah.
But that one thing, watching dead people come to life and watching them find their faith and watching people sort of in the background humbly serving and being obedient and watching people's lives change is the fuel, or should be, for a church, right?
Yeah.
The fuel is not we passed a new threshold of people in the room, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of churches, that's the thing. Like, we got 500 this week, and next week we got 520 next week. You know, like we're growing by this percentage. You know, and like let's keep up the good work. It's like no, like I want to watch people's lives change. You know, like I don't. Fine, great. Growth is going to be a side effect of a healthy thing. Healthy things are probably going to grow, like, you know, but also unhealthy things grow as well. So I'm really focused on, I want to see people's lives change. I want to look at them and say they're in a different place than they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a slow, methodical process sometimes. Like there are moments where there are people jumping out of the grave. There are also times when people are moving real slow along that path. So
have you guys ever seen any of the like kids books illustrations of like Lazarus when he comes to life? It's almost like Peter Pan coming out of a tomb. Like he just kind of pops up with his arms on his side like this, big smile. Like, what if it was more like a zombie, like coming out? I don't know. It'd be kind of funny.
I will give you guys like, I don't know if this is available online. I think maybe just clips of it. But my favorite like live action Jesus thing is called The Miracle Maker, and it's claymation.
Yes.
It is so killer, and it has like all these European voices that like do most of the people. So like, you know, Jesus. I want to say it's not Liam Neeson, but it's somebody like
I think it's
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes or Colin Firth or something like that. Yeah.
So it's like,
oh yeah.
It's
we
awesome.
looked this up. It's Ralph Fiennes.
It's awesome. I totally recommend people go look up The Miracle Maker and just go into the deep hole of watching all the clips you can find. They're fantastic.
I'm going to see if it's online for streaming right now.
So,
yeah, I like that we took a moment to focus on all the like out of the spotlight serving opportunities, because I think a lot of times those are ones that you see right away, and there are a lot of people like me who would rather be in the back of the room pushing buttons or showing up early to move carts and pipe and drape, and that's a higher percentage of what the actual, like, where people are serving.
Right.
On stage, there's maybe 12 people on stage each Sunday. We probably have 30 that make up the other serving opportunities. So it was really nice, and I heard a lot of feedback of people being like, yeah,
that's
okay,
me.
That's what I want.
I'm in the story.
Yeah. I don't want to be on stage in the lights with a mic.
Yeah.
It's like, great. I'll put you somewhere else.
Right.
I will find another spot for you. There's a place for you to serve.
And I cannot say this more unequivocally. You are not ready to be on stage until you have put the work in behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not a humble servant leader, we don't want you in front of people. We don't want to put you into leadership. Like, I had a conversation, we were talking about through our governance stuff, and it's like, how do you pick the people that are going to be on your, like, upper leadership team, your upper board?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I already know those people. Like, they're the ones that have been putting up curtains for 3 years. They're the ones that have been showing up to teach Sunday school. They're the ones that have been coming at 7 a.m. to set up the soundboard. They're the ones that have, like, if you aren't putting in the work behind the scenes to make the organization go, and you just expect to be thrown into leadership or thrown on stage because, man, you're a CEO of a company and you make a lot of money and you give a lot of money and you think you should just be on the board because of that, it's like, this ain't the church for that.
Yep. That's not our church.
Yeah. Like, if you're not a servant leader, you're not a leader.
Yeah.
I really like to, you've already mentioned this and it talked about the sermon, but the idea that we were invited into this, like Jesus he said, roll back the stone, like as a command, but also like, I'm not doing it. You guys do it, Right. So we're invited into it, but that invitation is also how we get our motivation as well. We get to be part of it. On that illustration of the child receiving the ability to hear for the first time.
Right.
And not only just the beauty of that, the miraculousness of it, but realizing that we're the ones in the front row seat of the stadium.
Right.
We've got courtside seats to that, so we get to sit back and just have a moment, enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and this came up in my small group. Somebody made a really smart comment. I can't remember who it was, but they were like,
"Let's guess. Give us names."
They were like it would have been so much more like of a amazing story if Jesus was just like, like
Right.
he just waves his hand and it's like, and then the stone flew away from, and then Lazarus comes out and he just does that, and all of a sudden Lazarus has a robe and a ring and the whole thing. It's like it would have been just like this incredible scene if Jesus had just done this miraculously, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Like he chose to invite people into it.
If he had, he would have just been more like the genie from Aladdin than he would have been Jesus. Like,
but I mean, when we look through Scripture at what Jesus did and what God has done, like, he's capable of it. Like, he could have.
Yeah.
But he chose to use imperfect people.
Right.
Right. It's the same way, like, when he feeds the 5,000, or when he invites Peter out of the boat onto the water.
Yeah.
Like, the invitation is there to serve, to be a part of it. And so it's not because Jesus actually needs us to do it. He can do it on his own, like you're saying. Yeah. It's because there is some sort of divine process at work in the midst of this, of our Savior doing his redemptive work, where he wants us to be a part of it. So he's inviting us into it, and that's...
I'd even argue it was more work for him to include us.
Yeah.
Like, there's an extra step to,
Right.
and thinking as somebody who could either do it or get other people involved, like, I have that thought on an almost weekly basis.
Let's just do it.
It's just easier for me to do it than to explain it to somebody
It'll
else,
be right.
get somebody else on board. Yeah. This is not what Jesus did. And
Right.
I sometimes have to remind myself that.
Well, yeah, totally. And I think, too, like, as former youth workers, we all, worked with interns or, staffers, things like that. And it's like, you would delegate something to that person. And, there were multiple times in my, work history where the senior pastor would be like, why'd you do that? Like, you would have done it 10 times better. And I'm like, I'm not delegating it because it's going to be better than how I did it.
Right.
Like, I'm delegating it so they learn how to do it. Like, that's why I'm doing it.
Right.
And I think,
You've got something to learn there.
Yeah, and that's essentially, I think, part of it is that God
So
wants
bonus leadership side note, if you can find somebody to do something that you want to give away, who can do it at about half your capacity right now, give it away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they don't do it at half your capacity, then you need to keep working with them until they get to that point.
Yeah.
If you see someone who has more capacity than you, or can get to like 80% of what you're able to do, that's what you're looking for. So 80% or up to way more than what you're capable of, that's what you're actually looking for. So when you're looking for somebody to delegate something to, you're looking for somebody, do they have more capacity than me?
Mm-hmm.
Can they right now do it at half my capacity? And like, if they can, give it away. Like, just go on to the next thing. Like, if you're a leader, you got too much to do anyways. The more you can give away, the better you're going to be. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think people are too controlling or too arrogant, thinking like no one else can do it as good as me. It might be true, but you might actually be keeping somebody who has more capacity than you to be better than you someday from ever getting into the role to take it on.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to see that. You got to see ahead and be like, this person actually probably could get better than me over time. Why don't I hand this off to them and let them run with it? And then there's a million other things that you can be doing, right? Like, if you're a leader who's like, doesn't have anything to do after you give stuff away, and you're worried about giving away your job, or you're not a very good leader. Come on. Like, like, you should be in way over your head in what you're capable of doing and what you're trying to do, and you should be dying for capacity, like, to be able to give people things. So
and chances are you weren't great at it right out the gate either.
Why do you keep looking at
No, this is directly to me. If you notice, Mark was talking directly to me.
What? Wow.
No, because this is something that I am not innately good at. Delegation is something I will go on the record and say this is something that I struggle with. But it's important.
But it's, for you, I will say this to defend you, it's not often about control as much as it is about efficiency or quickness.
Yeah.
You just want that thing to be done.
Yeah.
And it actually sometimes does cost us a little bit more time managing somebody else for a time.
Yeah.
So there's like, it's not efficient sometimes to give something away. It will be eventually.
Yeah.
But it's not right away.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times you're just like, I can do this fast and it'll be done. I'll have it checked off my list.
Right.
And if I hand it off to this person, I have to manage them. I have to make sure it gets done for a while.
So hold on a second. Is this what Jesus
Efficiency.
is doing with that, like, right now? Like, when he, it's not in the story, but, like, when he says, roll back this stone, did it take, like, a couple dudes pushing on it, and they're like, wow, we need one more, and it took, like, 20 minutes? Because in the story, it's like...
Yeah. I mean, my guess is...
Jesus just sitting there, like, eating a pear or something, waiting for them to roll back the stone.
Bring me some olives.
Yeah. He's like, guys, come on, like, just go get a pry bar or something.
No, my guess is there were enough of them that were like,
Right.
It was like pretty instant.
Roll back the stone.
I mean, it does say
like,
it was.
me?
I think it was Mary who came,
Yeah.
and then the crowd came with her. So there was a crowd of people there.
But like Jesus, it would have been much easier and more efficient for him to just snap his fingers and do it.
Oh, 100
Yeah.
and
Right.
cooler.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like the story is way cooler if he just like if he levitates the stone and just like
Yeah.
throws it 1,000 feet away.
Or snaps his fingers and it just turns into like
Disintegrates.
a million butterflies that fly.
Oh my goodness.
Doves.
So, yes.
Oh man.
Killer. Right? Wouldn't we have written a better movie script than this? Like, I
Yes.
think we would have improved on it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you could also say it would have been cooler if Jesus would have come back as like a prince or a king, but he didn't. Our human brains think it would be better, but
Yeah, more cinematic. I don't know, more movie. I think of it in movie terms.
I don't
Right.
think Jesus was focused on
More
being cinematic.
More fantastical.
Yeah, I always thought that
He
Jesus'
threw the
robes.
hammer, the hammer of Thor through the.
I always thought his robes should be sleeveless to show off the guns, and like he should have had sunglasses on. I mean,
Stop it. Stop it. Jesus wearing pit viper glasses and sleeveless. No.
Oh my gosh, we
Thanks,
have
buddy.
trailed so far.
and white sneakers.
So,
What is happening?
yes. So we get invited into it. That was kind of the concept, and that is the fuel because the main event is Jesus bringing dead people, to life.
Mhm.
And it's not, and I think this kind of gets to our one of our values.
Yes.
It's just like, and I don't think the average person in church thinks like this, which is why we need it to be one of our values. It's not like this is a super selfish thing that people have, but like it's a natural thing that people have where they think about themselves or they think about people like them or they think about people in their small group. But often no one's thinking about people who are outside of your church. Right. So one of our values is that we are passionate about people who aren't here yet. And we mean that in multiple levels, but like one of the ways we mean that is we're passionate about people who literally are not here because they are not part of a church because they do not know Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And when we make decisions as a church, when we're thinking through the things that we do, we are thinking about the average person who lives in the apartment building behind the community center who we're inviting to an event, and we're thinking about what their needs are, what their desires are, how we're going to meet them, how we're going to connect with them, as much as we're thinking about the people inside of our church. And that there's this tension, that we manage where we do care about our people. We do want to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to be discipled. We have...
We just got done with 1 John, and he talks a lot about that.
We have programs designed to put people in community and help them be growing together. But also, someone in our church needs to advocate for people who do not have a voice here yet.
Mm-hmm.
And often that falls to us as staff members when we're making decisions to be thinking about them. I kind of alluded to it a little bit this week when we were talking about our thought process on the, doing the Vacation Bible School at night during the week.
Kids Club in the evening,
And like one of the reasons why we did that was because during the week there's a great program during the day at the school that feeds the kids breakfast and lunch, that takes care of them during the daytime. It is childcare for a lot of like lower income people who are right in the area, and then a lot of people use it just for their work schedule or whatever. And it's like, so we're running this program and we're trying to reach to these people, but yet most of the ones we'd be reaching to, the kids who were maybe needing lunch or needing a place to be or needing a safe environment, were already in that at the school. So we moved it to the evening.
Yep.
And then we're like, well, if we're going to invite families to come, we should feed everyone because we don't want to possibly send somebody home without hungry, right? So we started thinking through that, is that the best thing for our people? Do most of our we have a lot of like stay-at-home moms and homeschool moms, and like, is it best for their kids? Maybe during the day is the best time for them. Maybe it gives them that, like, I can, drop my kids off and just spend a half an hour.
Is that how they sound?
Getting some Starbucks and just have a little bit of quiet in my life.
I didn't know we had any Southern.
I don't know why they talk like that.
Antebellum women at our church.
Actually, most of them would have been volunteering anyway.
Who is this person you're thinking of?
Oh, it's me, actually.
It's me. Yes.
Because I have my kids 4 days a week.
You're right. This was one of the tensions, and we skewed on the side of serving our community over serving our church.
I mean, Jess and I, when we were talking like through our calendar for this summer, I was like, yeah, it's a little bit on the later side. We would normally have our kids like in bed or being close to being ready for bed around that time, but it's also like we get why we're doing it as a church, and we want to be a part of that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'll work both great for everyone.
Yeah.
Also, I love the idea of our families sitting down to eat with families who aren't from our church. Like, to me, there is a super big benefit to that too.
There's just something really special when you get to sit down and have a meal and just like hang out, and I think our people shine in that setting. So getting to give them a time other than just a Sunday after church to do that with more people in the community is big. It's also, I heard from a lot of people last year who really wanted to serve from Pursuit but couldn't because it was in the middle of the day.
Right.
And they couldn't get their work schedule to flex. So I think this opens up an opportunity for them to come in the evening as well and be a part of it.
Yeah, one of the things that when I think about being passionate for the people who aren't here yet, like these things are great, but these are all like event-based or programmatic, mainly what we champion as staff, as the pastors and leaders of our church. It gets a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more complicated when you start bringing that to the individual people at our church and saying, like, how are you passionate about someone who's not here? I think traditionally, like the church I grew up at, that was always like distilled down to like invite a friend, or like you hear from the pulpit, like invite your coworker to church or something like that. We're not just talking about inviting people to church. We're talking about like genuine care and concern for people, whatever that looks like.
Right.
So I think the challenge that we don't forget it or ignore it is more like helping the average person who attends church embrace that and understand that, and even maybe give them tangible ideas or like, try this out, go do this. So I think it's even important to look at it from that perspective too, because community is important. It's important to be concerned about people who aren't here yet, but I don't ever want that to just be as simple or plain as invite a friend or invite a coworker or something like that. Like,
I think that's a great discussion for small groups to have. How as a group are we focused on loving and passionate about people who aren't here yet? There you go, homework, guys. Get at it.
Yeah, we should tell the person who writes discussion questions every week to do that too. So.
I throw her under the bus every week. People are like, what's this question mean? I'm like, I don't write them.
Listen up, everybody. If you've got a problem, you can email me. Okay?
And I'll say this. We've been in a couple situations recently where, like my first time when I went in the hospital a couple of years ago, now it's almost 2 or 2.5 years ago. I was in for 10 days. Marty's work colleagues got together and made this basket, and you're like, oh, that's so nice. Like,
they wove a basket.
It was so over the top. It was so crazy over the top. Like, there were not even kidding you, $1,500 worth of gift cards in it, like $250 worth of like grocery cards, like like, and then of course there were more than that. There were like snacks that were like just for her. Then there were like some people dropped off meals. Like we were taken care of easily as well by our non-church community there as we were by our church community. Our church community was amazing, by the way. I'm not saying that, I'm not throwing any shade at our church community at all. Like, I think we had meals for like a month. And people were amazing, taking our kids and doing cool stuff for us like that. But I kind of feel like, as I was thinking about them kind of stepping into that, like you have to think through. So like almost none of her coworkers are believers, and almost all of them care enough about her to do something like that. And so we just started like talking through, okay, so like can we, first we were just like, we need to thank these people. So we just started maybe having them over once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we are kind of starting to work through like all of her coworkers, having them over to our house for dinner. And you want to talk about like inviting somebody to church. Inviting somebody to church is like potentially 6 months down the road of having like a significant relationship with a person,
right?
Where you actually really care enough about them to know
right.
who they are, pray for them, invite them over to your house for dinner, like get the kids together to play. Like we've been doing this like consistently with all of her coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we feel like we have a great house to be able to host people, it's like she's slotting them into the calendar, like pretty regularly, and it's like that's what we intend to do to make sure that we're thinking about people and then opening those relationships. On our street, there's like this Facebook group, and apparently there's this like, I guess like every other Friday or every Friday during the summer, like somebody hosts a happy hour on Friday afternoons in their driveway, and they make like adult.
It's way cooler than it sounds, by the way.
They make like
It's
adult.
like the most suburban thing ever.
Adult cocktails. You bring your
lawn
chair down there and hang out with people.
Yeah.
You better believe like that time frame is already marked off on the calendar. Like we're not doing anything during that time. We're going to be at every single one of those, you know. So it's like thinking outside the box of it can get easy to be thinking just about your small group, just about your family, just about your kids.
Yeah.
What other communities are you connected to that you can start to put effort into getting to know people and like for real, not to like leverage them into an invite.
Right. Yeah.
Like because you care about them.
Yeah.
Well, I heard someone smarter than me once say on this specific subject of like, it wasn't framed under caring for people, but it was essentially like sometimes, and this person was hip next to grind against the church, but they basically said like, inviting someone to church, depending on that person's background and where they're coming from, that can be like the least caring thing you can do for them. Like. Think about how you want to be cared for and then do something like that for that person. And like you just said, like inviting them to church or inviting them into a conversation about faith or God, that's down the line. Like that will just happen. The Holy Spirit will prompt you when the time is right to do that. That's why like I have had such a hard time with like, you know, doing beach evangelism in college and using tracts and things like that. Like, not to limit the power of the Spirit, but it's like if you're just hitting people over the head with a biblical hammer, it's like you're probably not going to get very many people to come to church. Like it takes things like that. Like it takes genuine like, hey, who are you? I want to learn about your life. Tell me your story. Like, do you want to go grab a meal or coffee or a happy hour or whatever it is? Like these are things that I think a lot of Christians, it's like foreign. Like it's not foreign for like our friends and our families and people that we know and care about, but like in the context of church and how we care for others, it's like, oh yeah, I guess I totally could do that. Like why would I not? Like it's almost revolutionary. So.
Yeah, and I think people can smell it when, you know, you're only in that relationship,
right,
to try to get something out of it, like to leverage invite to church or leverage them into a relationship with Jesus. It's like you have to care about that person holistically. You know what I mean? Like, and really, it's got to be worth your time.
Right.
Like, you know.
Right.
Like, you got to ask the question, if this person doesn't do what I want them to do, is this relationship still worth it?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you need to go back and look at your own heart.
Right.
Yes. So. The point is not to get them in the door at pursuit.
Right.
The point is to get to know them. If that happens, great. If it happens, fantastic. I love it. But if you can just be a safe person who they know cares about them, and that
in the name of Jesus.
In the name, because you love them because you're a Christian,
right?
Then that's a win.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
So like one example that we have, not to toot our own horn, Jess and I.
Is that a horn?
I don't know what it is.
It's a rap horn is what it's called actually. Anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. We, with like a handful of our neighbors in our neighborhood, we got together and through a local organization, we didn't adopt, but like we've basically like come alongside this family that has immigrated from Cameroon this last year, and it's not, there's no like agenda or anything. It's basically just like to befriend them and like hang out with them, help them. There have been some needs that they've needed over the last year, but like it really is not just like placating them and be like, oh, you need groceries, we'll buy you groceries. That hasn't happened yet. It's been more like, hey, I'm running late from work. Can you pick my son up at school, bring him home? Or yeah, we can do that. Like a couple weekends ago, they'd gotten these bikes for their kids. And so like me and one of our other neighbors went over to their apartment and like oiled chains and filled up tires, made sure they had bike helmets, like, and then when the weather gets nice, we'll go on a bike ride. Like just things like that. Like there are ways to, maybe what we're just talking about is being neighborly. Like, there's ways to care for people and to love them.
Mark, I've heard you say this as somebody who is not originally from Minnesota. You don't have a ton of family around here. And so,
none.
I mean, think about the like family unit. I feel like over the last 50 years, it's kind of, it's not what it once was. But what are the things that a family would have done or like a community would do? Do the people around you, do the people in your circles have that? Can you be that for them? Can you show up to oil bikes or like pick up kids from school because
weave
you're
a
there
basket
and you're flexible? Like
put $1,500 in there. They didn't actually weave the basket.
No.
That was a dumb question.
Yeah. No, I don't know how people who don't have tons of family or maybe grew up here and have tons of connections make it if they're not part of a church.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens. Like I know the amount of times that we have relied on community in the past 8-10 years here, and it's like we wouldn't have made it through. We just wouldn't have made it. So yeah, I mean, I feel like being that for other people is probably what we're talking about. Being passionate for people who aren't here yet. So it's easy to do for a family from Cameroon because they got nothing, but it's also important for you to do for neighbors and coworkers and just people who, they're not out there asking for it. Sometimes they're even a little bit like,
I'm Minnesotan. We don't like to ask for things.
Yeah.
We want to be very independent.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I brought up the family is it's not like they work, they have money, like they're not in need of like food or clothing. They have all those things. They are just kind of in need of like a foothold into culture and like people who are friends with them and want to hang out with them, introduce them to different like social norms or social activities, tell them about, hey, this is where this restaurant is or this park is or whatever. Like, you ever heard of a winter carnival? We do that here. Like, just different things like that.
Why would you go outside at that time? That doesn't make any sense.
You're crazy.
The husband, when we met him in the fall, we were talking about like, land of 10,000 lakes and water and stuff, and he's like, oh, Africans we don't do lakes. He was like, I don't swim. And he's like, I certainly don't walk on frozen lakes.
I mean, he's not wrong. It's kind of crazy.
It was really funny.
I think it's a situation like that. You see a family from Cameroon. It's really easy for your brain to be like, oh yeah, they need community. Like, or this family who came from the East Coast, like, yeah, they need community. But there's more like in your circle. Who's the like family who doesn't talk to their family anymore? Maybe the rest of their family are not believers and they don't have that community. Or the single gal down the street who just like is just trying to figure things out on her own. Like, welcome her into your family too. So
I think I firmly believe that everyone has people like that in their lives.
Oh,
that
100%.
Have needs, relational needs.
Like I don't think it's possible that you don't have these people.
They don't have community, and so like it's a perfect opportunity for you.
Also, if you don't have these people, like, time to stop being a hermit.
Yeah. If you can prove that you don't have these people,
go do a thing.
We have another conversation.
Wherever you go, just start talking to random people, and you'll find them. Like,
great, we got these.
Know your neighbors.
There's people who are at church. Like, good luck, you can find them.
Yeah.
All right, so it kind of brings us into this this past week, where we really focused on the idea. So if the first concept was that your faith is fueled by watching this transformation happen, this is what really gives you the fuel as a believer, as a church. And I do believe that. I think that's really what our church is really focused on, seeing that, and that it really fuels us. The second concept this week was really more about the environment of what it looks like to grow as a believer. And this was like really me again, kind of focused on this idea that like I think has become popular, or maybe it was always popular, but I don't know. I think recently there's a lot of people who are like, no, I can walk away from the church. I can walk away from community. I don't need anybody else. It's just me and Jesus.
Yeah.
I think this idea is made worse by the idea that you can go to church online. So you can kind of like isolate my faith into this little capsule, this little compartment that says I do this at a certain time, once a week for an hour, or I listen to a podcast while I work out, or do this or that. And that's
not that there's anything wrong with that.
but that's my faith. My faith is I'm going to do this activity each week. And that's really what's going to be. And it's mostly we've gotten to this place where we're just learning something, but we're not actually being very obedient to it. It's just like more knowledge for us, more ammo for us to beat people up with online, more kind of, I don't know, I kind of think about kids, like it creates this like immature version of a Christian that knows a lot of stuff but can't live any of it out.
Yeah.
And I just feel like what takes those edges off and creates the environment that we need to grow in is community, both your church community, like on a Sunday morning, and also like a small group community or a serving community that you're part of, where people actually know you and they're encouraging you to walk this thing out, to actually do it. And I feel like a lot of people think they don't need that anymore, and that is a major miscalculation.
Yeah.
In fact, that's sort of the beginning of walking away from your faith in my mind. It like leads you to a place where you feel isolated, you feel hurt, you feel like people don't care about you, you feel, I don't know, like, I think isolation probably is the big word, but like it creates separation between you and Jesus because you don't have this community, which is the environment in which I think your faith really grows.
Right. I feel like one of the things that the pandemic has done for the church, I feel like in many ways when we talk about the pandemic in church, we talk about just all the negatives, like all of the hardships, all the bad things. I really have come to the conclusion that there is good that is coming out of it too, because it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of put a spotlight on some of these inherent or systemic things about church for Christians, the consumer, how we consume our churches and rarely participate. I think it's highlighted a lot of those things, and that's kind of created this like crucible for a lot of people where it's like, do I walk away from my faith? Do I even have a faith? Or do I like re-up and walk closer to God and go back to church? Like, one of the things I love about movies that I think highlights what I'm saying here is that, like, at the end of WALL-E, when like all the people who've been living in the ship, they come out of the ship and they're like, oh, there's this whole new world, like, or at the end of Total Recall, like when Mars has air and they walk outside and it's like this whole new world for them to discover.
Old one, not the new one.
Yeah, not the new one.
Trash
Yeah.
was, yeah.
What I'm saying is that I think there's like a fair number of Christ followers who are at that moment right now where it's like, if you're turning your face towards Jesus and you're turning back to like what our faith should have been all along, you're realizing like, oh my goodness, there's this whole new world that I need. I haven't really been tapping into. I've been doing this all wrong, or maybe like half right, for most of my life. And so I think like as we talk about the importance of community, the importance of relationship with other believers, the importance of being a part of that, it doesn't just benefit you or others. It's like, this is how God designed it to be all along. It's kind of this reawakening of our souls, of like our spirituality and what that can mean and what it should mean, the way it should have always been. So.
Yeah, I mean, theologically, like God himself is a community, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, how did we miss that one?
My brain will explode if you think about it too long. And he created us with that need. And what's interesting is I do find that people, this is a sad thing about the church too, it's like I do think people find that community in other places, and it's not quite the same, but it's like enough the same that it's okay. Like
it's like a discount version of it.
Yes, and I hate to say it that way, but like there's something about and I was talking with a millennial who kind of was in the church, like had a job in the church, and then walked away from the church, and they were telling me like, yeah, I have this job where I work in this neighborhood, and basically I've gotten to know all the neighbors in the neighborhood and all the regulars at the place that I work and all the people who are like loosely connected to the community of people that I'm in, and I love this community, and I don't actually feel the need anymore to have Christian community. And I just like asked the question, well, like, how's your faith doing? And their answer was struggling hard, right? Right? Because it's you can replace it with counterfeit community, but like that's not going to cause you to actually grow in your faith. If your desire is to have this like vibrant faith, then you can try to find community in other ways, but that's not going to lead you to the place that you're looking for. You're designed to have this vibrant community of other believers around you that would challenge you, push you, encourage you, pick you up when you fall, carry the burdens for you when the times are when they're too heavy, and would do it together, and I think there's something about that like I look at my small group, and I can just talk from my own experience, but like everybody in our small group has little kids, like really little kids. So my in-laws were visiting, and they stayed and hung out at our small group. So we had two rando,
old people.
Yeah, nobody knows them really. They're just like there. And my father-in-law is a genius. Like, he's a pastor who's been pastoring for like forever, his whole life, and he reads Hebrew and Greek. Like, he's absolute theological genius. And watching him bite his lip as people were sharing stuff was just brought me so much joy. But like afterwards we were kind of talking through, and like we might have got like 35-40 minutes of like content of like because we eat together, which is super important to us. We send our kids downstairs, but it's like a 10-minute process of bringing them downstairs, and they're coming back up, and they're going back down. There's almost always a kid in someone's lap making noise throughout the entire group time. And we only meet 5:45 to 7:30 because our kids got to get to bed. We don't really have time to do anything else. So like it's a quick kind of thing, and it's like it's all we can handle. But even that is like enough. You know what I mean? Like even that is just like a shot in the arm. It's like hey, I have a place where I belong. There's people I can share things with. We prayed for one person who was having surgery. We were able to lay hands on that person. Like our little kids are like standing there laying hands, like looking around, like what's going on. Like that's what we're doing. And it's not like the deepest Bible study in the entire world. That's not what we're going for. But like you have a place where people accept you, love you, care about you, are paying attention to you, are texting back and forth with you throughout the week, are caring for your needs. When one of us has a problem that's too heavy, the rest of us carry the load. Like that's what it's supposed to be. My in-laws both they recognize the fact that no like older person without the capacity for that kind of noise and busyness and like lack of like focus would be able to handle that group. Yeah. And secondly, they agreed that it was like incredibly beautiful to like be a part of. So like to me, it's like that community needs to be part of every person's life. If there's like one thing somebody would ask me in our church, like, what should I do? I'd love for you to serve. Really, I feel like that's part of what it means to be part of a family. You got to do something. You got to load the dishwasher. Like somebody has to do the things. But really, what I want is for you to be in a small group. Like really, what I want is for you to have a place where you're connecting somewhere. Somebody's caring about you. Somebody's paying attention to you. Somebody's inviting you into community and offering that part of their life to you as well. Because that, to me, is the environment where really growth happens. Like you could serve, you might grow a little, but man, you join a small group, you're going to grow a lot.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how you guys feel.
And give. I mean, you don't. It's just one of the ways. I don't know.
That stuff takes care of itself.
I think from later. Yeah.
A kid. Yeah.
So, yeah, I got to give another update because as I dig into our finances, it's really funny. We ping pong back and forth, Yeah. So I'm like, things are great, guys. Good job. And it's like, and And then like, okay, guys, things suck again. Can you guys give a little bit more? And like, right back up.
Yeah.
Probably.
Welcome to church.
Well, I mean, probably tells you about where everybody's life is in general. You know, it's how we do our faith sometimes too. It's like, me and Jesus are tight.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah.
Lost focus for a
Jesus,
second.
right? I gotta get back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Little note from before. The Miracle Maker is streaming for free on Prime Video.
What?
Right now.
Yes.
And Tubi.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
It's sick.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
Come on. I'm gonna show my kids. They're gonna love it. So
Sweet.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Jesus. Hi, Jesus. Like, wait a second.
What is that accent?
I don't know. It's
Australian.
England.
I think.
Yeah, I'm not really
New
sure.
Zealand.
That's not English. I don't know what.
Hi, Jesus.
Hey, all. Hi, Jesus. Let's throw another shrimp on the bobby.
Yeah.
Wait, we don't do shrimp. We're Jewish. Yeah, I don't know. It's really fun. It's if you're okay with like English accents, but I mean the claymation is amazing. It's so good.
I like English accents. That's not what that was, though.
No, but
Not if you're
sometimes it's really bad for you to have English accents for what is essentially a, you should have I don't
Middle
know.
Eastern.
Yeah, Middle Eastern type accent. I don't know.
Wait, you mean Jesus didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes?
I have a whole theology around this. I'd love to do some other time for it. But yeah, I think that
Another day.
that thing gets a bad rap sometimes, but sometimes it's warranted. So either way, we can talk about it another time.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, just to kind of clean things up, like to me, that piece of community is huge, and I think our whole culture is missing it.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, things are moving out to the, like being sort of decentralized out to the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's causing all kinds of problems. I mean, you got kids that, again, they don't get the facial recognition of the person they're hurting when they say terrible things to people, and the online bullying thing is just so much easier. The trolling is so much easier than it is in real life, and I feel like you also don't really care if you make everybody mad around you. You don't have to manage your relationships anymore because you can retreat to the internet and find a hole of trolls that will agree with whatever dumb thing it is that you agree with.
And you can find yourself an echo chamber. You can find yourself a group of people who believe exactly like you do, and then you don't ever have to sit in any tension about disagreeing with people.
Right. And it's a bad place. I mean,
Yeah.
think about all the bad stuff that comes out of those echo chambers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how we get to play.
Nothing good.
This is how we get to situations where people are like breaking into the Capitol live on CNN.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's echo chambers. It's holes in the internet where people are just like, egging each other on to like get more extreme.
Yeah.
You're just like.
And even if it's not those things, it's like it kind of gets back to that watered down version of community that we were talking about earlier. Like one of the things that I used to enjoy about like social media was being able to connect with like someone I knew in high school or an old friend or something like that. And it's like not actually reconnecting with them. I'm just looking at their lives from a distance.
Yeah.
Like it creates
That
a
edited
false
version.
It creates a false sense of community that isn't actually real and doesn't really mean anything.
And I think it's really important for us to know people and have people in our lives who think differently than we do,
Mm-hmm.
who believe differently. Like, here's somebody else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good thing. Like, to be able to sit and be like, I disagree with you, but that's okay. Like, it's okay to disagree with people.
Right.
I don't always agree with Mark. There are a lot of things that we would disagree on how to do.
Many.
But we've
Everyone
learned,
is able to have a terrible take or two. It's fine. You can have
right,
some.
you can be wrong too. But we have almost 12 years of working together where we now can joke about this and communicate and be okay. Yeah, I think we don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
We don't have enough people in our lives that disagree with us, that we're willing to spend a lot of time with.
Yeah.
Because it's tiring. It's hard.
Yeah.
Can be.
It's
Yeah.
not easy. Like, people are exhausting. People are messy. They will let you down. They will not follow through on something. They will be aggravating at times.
By the way, that's part of real community.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially what you want is for everyone to agree with you all the time. That's not real.
No.
Like, if you are only surrounding yourselves with people that say exactly what you believe, and you're not allowing for anyone to challenge you at any point, then all you're doing is controlling people around you to be exactly what you want them to be. That's called narcissism, right? Where you basically are, gaslighting your ideas into them, or trying to get them to. No, you need to allow people to be who they are and allow yourself to be who you are, and to be safe in community, knowing that like neither of us are walking away from this relationship at the end of this conversation, right? And we can disagree with each other, and it's okay. We can challenge one another, because it's what's best for us.
Right.
So,
well, I think that's it for today. So we're going to wrap up here in a second. Next week, this Sunday is our third and last week of Vibrant Faith, the series. And after that, do we jump right into Encounters with Jesus?
Yep.
So we'll be starting a new series called Encounters with Jesus. I'm actually really, really excited about it. And it's exactly what it sounds like, talking about different encounters with Jesus.
Yep.
It's going to be awesome. And we'll do that through the summer, most of the summer. And then once we get to this fall, we'll be talking governance and things like that. And kind of.
Yeah, I think it's August where we do some values of our church, and then we tie it in with the governance stuff that we're going to be rolling out. So
we have 13 weeks of Encounters with Jesus.
Yeah.
Probably one of the longer sermon series that we'll do, but it's going to be really good.
But each week is a different story.
Yes.
Right? So it's not like going through Romans for 13 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Which would be great too. But also...
Not that there's anything wrong. We're starting our...
That's not on the calendar for us to do next.
Starting our series on Leviticus.
I don't know if I ever want to...
Woo!
I don't know if I ever want to do all the way through Romans.
Never say never, but it's definitely not on the planning table right now.
We might just at one point go like, we're going to do Romans 8 for the next month. You know what I mean? Like, it's so dense. It's so hard.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us today, and hope you guys have a great week. As always, we would love to get your guys' feedback, whether those are questions, thoughts. You can drop those here in the comments, wherever you're watching or listening. You can also send an email to office@pursuitcommunity.church, or you can talk to us, text us if you have our phone numbers. We'd love to hear from you guys.
We are 20 episodes in, and we don't feel like we have this whipped.
Yeah.
Right? So we would love to do some more topical stuff. If people have a question or two they want to ask, like, we would really, really appreciate that kind of thing. So
let us know.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Have a great week. See ya.
Bye.
All right.